Welcome to One for the Money, the weekly talk show with interviews you can use. I'm national financial columnist and talk show host, Steve Savant. And on today's show, your Social Security benefits. There are so many seniors who are not maximizing their benefits and leaving real money on the kitchen table. Today, we're going to bring you up to speed on your Social Security and possibly place more money in your pocket. After all, it is your money. And to help us understand Social Security benefits and generate the most income throughout retirement, national financial columnist and professional instructor Ken Davis, CPA and certified financial planner and Social Security expert. All here on One for the Money. Ken.
Hey, Stephen. Good to see you.
I'm so happy that you're on our show. I've had Ken on so many other of our broadcasts online, and Ken is a certified financial planner, as I said in my introduction, as well as a CPA. And we're talking about Social Security, and one of the reasons we want to talk about this is such an important issue. I mean, with all the talk that's going on in the debt ceiling, the sequester, this is all going to somehow, some way, eventually fall on the table of Congress. Somebody's going to have to do something about this. But right now, we want to make sure that all of our viewers understand all the perks, the provisions, and all the advantages of Social Security. And Ken, I have to say, I was reading your brief for the introduction for our first segment, and it said here, the average worker leaves $14,000 on the table that they didn't tap. I was in shock.
Well, and the point there is that some people might think that what we're talking about today doesn't affect them. Well, average worker, I mean, that's blue collar, white collar, every kind of collar across the United States, leaves $14,000 of lifetime benefit from Social Security on the table because they don't understand the rules. And admittedly, the rules are rather complex, and I have to admit to you, even with the 4 credentials that I have, it was only until recently that I fully understood the additional benefits that people can take advantage of. And I want to let our listeners know that while the rules are complex, the concepts are actually relatively easy, and they can add a lot of money to their pocketbook. And a lot of our clients that make a little more money are well into the $50,000 to $100,000 additional lifetime benefits. So, I mean, I don't see much on the internet or on the Social Security page that actually, the government's page that actually points this out. And that's why I'm kind of, I want to get into some of the things that we can touch on, because these provisions are for you. I mean, we paid into it. We should be receiving it. Now, it kind of shocked me. I read this little article on the web on the Tennessee senator who basically, or a House of Representatives basically says, hey, there's really no obligation. That kind of bothered me, right? That the government, what do you mean they have no obligation? We've been paying into this. This is why I don't like the phrase entitlement when it's attached to Social Security, because we actually contributed. And by the way, if you're a W-2 employee, your employer also contributed to your retirement. Well, that's exactly right. We have a right to these benefits, and it's interesting as we go through this and start to see some of the benefits that we can capture. People, sometimes wonder, well, is this real? Is this something I should be taking advantage of? Well, I can tell you that some of the provisions that allow us to do the things we did were changed as recently as the year 2000. This is not some sort of provision that was sitting there as a loophole. Congress specifically put some of these provisions into the law to allow us to do certain things, and it's just we discovered them and understand them and know how to use them properly. Now, we used to, and I was reading some of your other material on Social Security, we used to do this based on one life. And that's the old way of calculating Social Security. What's the new way? Well, let's talk about that. Whenever you talk to people, I think like 60% of the people elect early Social Security at 62. And that's a huge mistake. And I'll tell you why that's a huge mistake. Is the old way of doing it is, oh, it may not be around, and what if I die, and all that other stuff. Well, we listen to those concerns, and we're going to address them in the show to show people how to get the maximum they can get and still deal with some of their issues. And so, I would really like our listeners to keep an open mind and say there are some other ideas here that I didn't know about that I could benefit. The old idea was, if I defer my benefits so I can get higher income, then when I do start getting the higher income, how many years does it take me to recover that? Well, we're going to show techniques today that will reduce that amount of time to recover substantially and show them why they should still go ahead and do that. So, well, I think this is kind of news to me. I mean, we're talking about a law and a legislation that was done
12 years ago, 13 years ago, that people are just becoming aware of. So if we're right at the edge of taking Social Security, and I have to say yours truly is right on the outer markers here, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm so glad, Ken, that we talked about this on one of our other broadcasts, and I wanted to bring this to our consumers, our viewership, because One for the Money is all about having people maximize their income, especially for retirement, and this is a big pillar in a lot of Americans' retirement plan.
You know, I had to ask myself the question, why hadn't I heard about this? Why isn't this being done routinely by CPAs, financial planners, whatever? And there's really a couple things. My observation after studying law for years is it takes a while for law to percolate out into the advisor community and then to clients. It takes a while for us to all get educated on what our rights and opportunities are, is number one. And number two, quite frankly, you have to have a decent piece of software that can make the hundreds of calculations necessary. You know, our consumers don't have to do it. We simply put some data in and we have number crunching calculators that will tell us what the key point that they should elect their benefits, and then what's going to be surprising is that we can not only elect benefits but switch to something else, and we're going to be talking about what we can switch to today.
Well, I just saw some of the numbers that you were putting out on how many possible permutations there are, and that's why you need the software to calculate what's the best benefit for you.
Well, let's make it simple for our viewers. This works mostly for either married couples or surprisingly, couples that were married at least 10 years or more and now divorced. They can actually utilize these things as a couple even though they're divorced, which is surprising to me and exciting to a lot of people that are in that situation. But basically, husband has 9 different years that they can elect. The wife has 9 years that they could elect. And when you multiply 9 times 9, that's 81 combinations.
Well, that's too much. When we come back, we're going to talk about all this with Ken Davis, CFP.
Did you know the average 401k runs out of money just 7 to 8 years into retirement? Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and many other publications have warned of the difficulty of saving with a 401k. But what if there was a way to create tax-free lifetime retirement income with no stock market risk? Good news, there is.
You know, living in fear of the next market dive is not the way I want to live my life.
Why would I go out there and take on risk when I don't need to?
I have a lot less stress knowing I can't lose any more of my retirement savings in the stock market.
Call now to receive your free, no-obligation analysis of what this retirement vehicle could do for you, a comparison to your current retirement plan, and a free video that explains this exciting opportunity. Start planning a retirement you can enjoy instead of worrying about future tax increases and stock market losses. Creating income that will last your entire life is the most important thing you'll ever do. Take control of your future. Call now for your free analysis, comparison, and video.
Well, welcome back to our segment. I'm Steve Savant, our host here. And of course, our guest, Ken Davis, CFP and Certified Financial Planner. We're talking about Social Security. Ken, I have to say, first segment, a lot of blue-collar Americans are leaving $14,000, somewhere in that vicinity, and some of our more affluent Americans that are doing Social Security, have been contributing to Social Security, may be leaving up to 6 figures. I mean, that seemed outrageous. Let's talk a little bit about the beneficiaries and the people who can play in this, because we know now that after this 2000 legislation, we have the ability to really maximize our benefits. And I want to know, who are the people that are going to benefit from this?
Well, basically, the planning, the switching strategies, the elections, and the timing primarily are designed for married couples or people that were married for at least 10 years or more. And that could be several marriages. You could have several marriages of 10 years or more, and you actually get to pick from the best of those. You can't have all of them at the same time, but you get to pick the best of the bunch.
I'm sorry, I can't let that go. So if I was married 3 times and at least a minimum of 10 years, and my spouse was working or whatever, or had worked, I could pick the one that's going to deliver the best for the partial switching option?
That's right, and we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Let's get back to the basics so we keep it simple. Everybody knows that if you work and you qualify for Social Security, you get your primary worker retirement benefit. That's what we're all pretty much familiar with. Some of us might be aware of the fact that we could have a spousal benefit. That was designed originally for those homemakers in our more traditional culture that we've evolved from, where the wife might have stayed home, in some cases now the husband, and didn't work, didn't qualify, and needed some income from their spouse. And those are called spousal benefits. And then there's survivor benefits, which is I was married, I helped build my family, raise the kids, and now my spouse has passed away. What am I going to do? Where do I live? Well, that's the survivor benefit. So we have three benefits, the worker benefit, the spousal benefit, and the retirement benefit. And how that works is a spousal benefit, because the spouse is still alive, they say, okay, we're going to give you up to 50% of the income that your spouse has earned. So, you know, wife goes to husband, husband's is $2,000 a month, then she could qualify as one of the options.
Is this the full retirement age?
This is at full retirement age of 66. It's currently, and it's changing. So you have to
find out when you were born.
And any of the stuff, you have to really work with an advisor. Don't try to do this on your own. You're not going to get there appropriately. You might make some mistakes. So at age 66, up to 50%, as early as 62. Okay, and to do spousal benefits, both parties have to be 62. But I don't want to get too detailed. The second one, the more important one, and especially in older ages, is let's say you're in an assisted living care center and your husband or wife has passed away. You can take up to 100%, up to 100% of what their benefit was. So let me give you an example. Mary was a school teacher. Her benefits under Social Security is $1,500 a month. Harry just died a few years ago. He was a pipe fitter and he's making $2,000 a month in Social Security. Well, Mary elected her $1,500 and Harry had his $2,000 and Harry dies. Well, Mary may not know that she can now go down and switch from her $1,500 to the $2,000 because she gets 100% of Harry's. Surprisingly, and this just blows my mind, let's say that Mary was married to George. Early in life, had some kids with George, raised them, and then they went their separate ways, and George was a doctor. And George's benefit is $2,400, and a month after Harry dies, George dies. She gets to pick the $2,000 from Harry or the $2,400 from George. And people don't know this, and we pay for it. It's part of the legislation. This is not some loophole. This is specifically put in there. The rules are clear. You can look on the SSA.gov website and look under survivorship benefits. I'm not making this up. It's true. If you call the Social Security Administration, they're lovely, wonderful people, and they will help you compute those numbers. What they don't talk about and really haven't been trained is to switch. So Mary can switch to those, and there's more complex strategies, but that kind of sets the tee to let people understand some of how this works.
Well, what I got out of that little segment was that you should keep tabs on your ex.
Yeah.
I mean, you need to know who they are, where they went, and so forth. Yeah. And you don't need your permission to do this, right? I mean,
no, and it doesn't hurt them. Doesn't take anything away from them.
Right.
They don't need to know you're doing it. You don't need their permission or signature.
Well, when I think about it, we're looking at different demarcation lines, age 62, age 66, and then age 70. Talk a little bit about the maximum benefits, because a lot of people are really holding back on their RMDs.
The maximum benefit is, let's say you get $2,000 at age 66. That's your full retirement age. Early retirement of 62 is only $1,500. It's a 25% hit. Now, 8% per year increase from 66 to age 70 adds 32% additional. So that $2,000 becomes $2,640 a month versus early retirement of $1,500. That's worth doing some planning around.
And because you have some partial benefits between that time, there's places to play here.
That's right.
Well, I like all this. This is what we're trying to do, is map out a strategy for you. We want to bring you into an educational mode so that you can then say, wow, Steve, that wasn't that hard to learn. And we have all kinds of material and support educational pieces that'll really help you put yourself in a position to make the right choices. And again, you need a professional to do it. We're going to come right back and continue with Social Security right after the break.
Did you know the average 401k runs out of money just 7 to 8 years into retirement? Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and many other publications have warned of the difficulty of saving with a 401k. But what if there was a way to create tax-free lifetime retirement income with no stock market risk? Good news, there is.
You know, living in fear of the next market dive is not the way I want to live my life.
Why would I go out there and take on risk when I don't need to?
I have a lot less stress knowing I can't lose any more of my retirement savings in the stock market.
Call now to receive your free, no-obligation analysis of what this retirement vehicle could do for you, a comparison to your current retirement plan, and a free video that explains this exciting opportunity. Start planning a retirement you can enjoy instead of worrying about future tax increases and stock market losses. spouses. Creating income that will last your entire life is the most important thing you'll ever do. Take control of your future. Call now for your free analysis, comparison, and video.
Well, welcome back to our third segment, and we're going to prep all about Social Security with Ken Davis, Certified Financial Planner and CPA. I want to be able to talk about some of the things we talked about, but before I go on too far, I mentioned RMDs, required minimum distributions. A lot of people are starting to wait till 70 because they really don't need the money, and they are thinking about taking their Social Security at 70, their RMDs at 70, to really have quite a powerful income coming in, because you have to take out your required minimum distributions anyways.
Well, and the power of IRAs and tax deferral is the longer you can defer, the more value there is in that account. So if you can do that, it works.
I want to talk about some of the objections and sometimes the pitfalls. We kind of want to navigate that in this segment. Ken, walk us through some of this, because there are a few minefields here we want to be mindful of.
We talked about the fact that some people are concerned about Social Security still being around. And I have to admit, I have those concerns as well. What I've read recently in preparation for the show is that the actuaries, the government itself, and actuaries of these egghead types of mathematicians that go through all the numbers, they say that it'll last at least till 2037, and even after that, when that fails, potentially, it doesn't go away. It drops from 100% to 75%. It's a 25% reduction. Under current circumstances, it will continue to maintain itself. I think it's likely, in discussing with other advisors, that we'll either see younger generations, probably below 55, push their retirement date out further, because we're all living a lot longer, and it's likely that it'll be more like 70 or something at that point in the future. So they'll find ways to shore it up, I believe. But in the meantime, that's what, another 24 years. Well, and those that are in their 60s now should be just fine. So I think that it's a valid objection. However, I think it's been overblown.
No, and a lot of people object, say, I love your tactical thinking in the second segment, Ken. It was great, but what if I die before I max out those benefits?
And I think that's one of the more valid things is, what if you defer your benefits so that you can get that higher benefit? What do you do about that? Well, interestingly enough, the additional income that we create with the spousal benefits, some of the strategies we're doing, I ran some numbers for an age 62-year-old person for a 10-year term, and it's like $30, $40, $50 a month per person, and that's just for standard health. That isn't an exceptional health. So there are some cheap, inexpensive solutions just to take care of that gap for a short period of time, very inexpensive, that can deal with that issue. So if they do die early, there's a $100,000 life insurance benefit that comes out either to the spouse or the heirs.
What about our use of other planning, qualified plans, maybe some other retirements, maybe money sitting on the side? Does that work at all with Social Security? Because I remember when we first built when the legislation first came out, really Social Security wasn't taxed. So there's some issues here.
Well, there are. And what I did was, I actually ran this last week, where I said, okay, what if I defer and I use some of my other money? Well, I'm going to be better off or worse off by deferring my Social Security. And the growth is so high by deferring, it's impossible to ignore. You can't recreate this with regular assets. At 0.5% in CDs, and people scared of the stock market, taking some of your money that's in other types of assets to cover that 8 years from 62 to 70, the additional benefits are so large, it's impossible to ignore. I actually was able to run some numbers and quantify that, and it verified what my thoughts would be. And yes, that works.
So again, we have so many strategies that we have to go through to make sure we can custom fit this to the client and their spouse. And this is why I like it, because there's so many permutations to this and possible avenues to go down, so that we can make sure we're maximizing our benefits. And like you said, I just want to cover any kind of minefields that we're talking about, and you just named a couple of them here. Now, let me ask you this. I'm looking at this, where you talked about the solvency and some of these things. I'm wondering, in regards to when we're looking at running Social Security permutations, and I'm going to use some of my partial benefits at 62. Let's say I want to just, I might as well just take it, right? If I have it, if I want it. If I want to use some of those partials to get me to age 70, to kind of help supplement.
Well, let's talk about an example, because it's easier for our listeners and viewers to understand. Let's go back to that example. 2,000 at full retirement, 1,500 early, and then an extra 32% at 2,640 at age 70. Well, while we're deferring our own benefit, these rules allow me to actually claim a spousal benefit. So in that example, let's say that Harry again is his benefit would be $2,000. The wife Mary would be $1,500. Well, she can take half of Harry's when she's 66. She can take half of Harry's, which would be $1,000 a month. So she gives up $2,000 a month in that example that I started with, and she's now taking $1,000. So she's deferring about $1,000 a month, but she's really actually getting an extra benefit. That's the really key here. She's getting extra benefit. If you don't use a strategy, you lose it. So she's going to take her spousal benefit of $1,000 a month to age 70, and then she's going to switch to the $2,640. In the meantime, she's going to use some sort of other asset to live on in the meantime, so that she can get that $2,640. Harry, in that example, also gets to defer his, if he wants to, all the way to age 70.
Well, these are huge strategies, and again, you'll be able to go out to our website, oneforthemoney.tv, and we're going to talk about all this. We have a huge supporting material. We come back from the break, we're going to talk to you about how do we go through it. We talked about preparation. Now we're going to say this is how you do it and implement our ideas.
Did you know the average 401k runs out of money just 7 to 8 years into retirement? Time Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, and many other publications have warned of the difficulty of saving with a 401k. But what if there was a way to create tax-free lifetime retirement income with no stock market risk? Good news, there is.
You know, living in fear of the next market dive is not the way I want to live my life.
Why would I go out there and take on risk when I don't need to?
I have a lot less stress knowing I can't lose any more of my retirement savings in the stock market.
Call now to receive your free, no-obligation analysis of what this retirement vehicle could do for you, a comparison to your current retirement plan, and a free video that explains this exciting opportunity. Start planning a retirement you can enjoy instead of worrying about future tax increases and stock market losses. Creating income that will last your entire life is the most important thing you'll ever do. Take control of your future. Call now for your free analysis, comparison, and video.
Well, welcome back to our last segment. Again, I'm Steve Savant, your host, and of course with us, Ken Davis, CPA and CFP. Ken, when we want to know our Social Security statement, you know, they do send it to us, but sometimes people just throw it away. I can't believe that. You need to keep it. But if they lost it, what could they do to regain it and get their statements back online again?
Well, I have to be complimentary of the government in this case. www.ssa.gov is the Social Security Administration, and you can simply get on. You set up your own account. They ask you a few questions.
Is that hard?
No, it's easy.
Okay.
And if anybody needs help, they can call me. I'll walk them through it. It's very simple. Get on, sign up for an account, and then they can download their statement right off the web and into a PDF file. And
how many times is the annual? Is it at the end of the year they recalibrate it? Or
well, every year they send an annual statement. They're going to look at your most recent earnings statement, and they'll make some adjustments based on how the formula works. And it's complex enough nobody wants to even think about it. Just have them do it for you. They're happy to do it for you. And by the way, if they're widows or widowers, they will compute what your survivor benefit is just by simply calling them. However, unfortunately, in order to max out some of these benefits, you can't do the applications online. You really need to go down to the Social Security Administration with specific language, which we can help with. But you can download the statement. I'd be happy to look at it. I do these calculations for people for $199, and they can take the full report and go to their CPA or attorney or financial planner, insurance agent, whoever they like to work with on their financial matters, and they'll now have some very useful full report that will help their advisors. And I'm going to tell you, some of the advisors are going to scratch their heads and say, "What's this? I mean, how does this work?"
Right,
they really don't know. I talk to people all the time. And again, they can call me after I do the calculation. Glad to explain it to them, go through it, so that they can make maximum use of it.
Well, Ken's a national financial columnist, and he writes to the professional market. In the professional market, when he wrote on Social Security, nobody knew a lot of these ideas as advisors. So it's not surprising to me that this would be a surprise to a lot of people out there that are really helping your clients. One thing I want to talk about, though, I can see all our planning for us who are just on the cusp. We're just prior to 62. We got all this now. We understand it. But what if I'm in the middle? I'm already taking benefits. Is any way to pivot on this?
Well, I'm going to broaden the statement. I'm going to say whether you're 30 years old or 66 years old, going through and having a report, for instance, the financial planners are projecting your retirement income. And I've used the software, I know what it's like, and they just have, the software just does some of these averages. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. It does take into effect your age and what your general earnings are. But it's not specific, and it doesn't take advantage of these special strategies that we've been working with. So even at 40 years old, you provide this to your financial planner, and they go, oh, okay. Now they have a number they can plug in, and they're going to get a more accurate look at how much you have to put away for retirement. So this is a supplement to the retirement planning and useful. For older ages, certainly at 61 that works. Sometimes people have deferred to 66. They can still take advantage. Sometimes they've made elections. We can stop the election. We can add additional income. There is the rule of thumb. The best time is 61 before you turn 62. But there's other situations that we may be able to help. So and I'm not going to charge you for something that isn't going to benefit you. So call me, let me know, and if I think there's a benefit, I'll help.
Well, let's go back to that, because this is a really interesting possibility that you bring up. All right, I have people that have already elected their Social Security benefits. They think that's the way it is. There's no way to pivot. There's no kind of flexibility. But you're making a statement here that basically there may, not all cases, but there may be some appropriate ways to halt what you're doing and then reapply. That could actually bring more money in.
Yeah, for instance, say somebody elected at 66, they're 2 years into it. They could stop it right before 68 and let it defer for another 2 years. They'll get 8% per year additional, so a 16% increase in their income. The other thing that people might want to delay is remember that between 62 and 66, if you're working, the government's going to reduce your Social Security benefits. So you might say, gee, I want to go back to work for whatever reason, I have to, or I'm bored, or whatever. You may just say, hey, I'm going to stop my benefits, go to work so they don't reduce my Social Security benefits, allow it's there to continue to defer to 70, and then turn it back on again then.
Now, are they actually reducing the benefits, or is it just being taxed more and that reduces the benefit?
Well, it's really, technically it's not a tax. It functions like one. Basically, they will take so many dollars for every couple of bucks that you earn. I believe the formula is they'll reduce your Social Security income by $1. So it doesn't make sense to have it turned on and work. So you need to know how to do this. The other thing before we forget is I want to make sure we're talking about ages. Well, let's say somebody's a widow or widower. Widows and widowers can benefit from the survivor benefit as early as age 60, and if there's dependents, it could be even earlier. Wow. So age 60. They could be 85 in assisted living center, their husband just dies, their wife just dies, they could switch to the other one or a prior spouse. So you can't just say 61, there's a wide variety. A quick phone call, a quick discussion, we can determine whether there's an opportunity or not. I even have a website I can refer them to. They can put some quick data in. It'll give them a quick and dirty estimate of what the benefit could be before we even engage in any sort of process.
Well, the thing that you just brought up, of course, as well is, you know, when we're talking about people at their 30, 35, plugging in their real numbers to see what those real numbers are going to be in the future, although I do think, like you, I think it's going to be out there. Maybe 70 is going to be the new demarcation line for people that are under 55. But even if you're taking benefits right now, it's a good time to go ahead and get this calibrated for $200. This is totally worth the benefit. Next week, we're going to talk more about how to make your money work harder for you. And remember, we have the educational tools you need to help your learning experience, and we've partnered with financial professionals who recognize the unique challenges to seniors. For more information on how you can determine if you're maximizing your benefits, just go out to the show's site at www.oneforthemoney.tv. And remember, you can follow me on Twitter and visit me on any of my social media network sites, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google+. That's one